When you walk into a coffee shop, it's easy to watch people and think this is all just normal life. Tap your card, grab your drink, move on. But if you look a little closer, you'll see the same story playing out at every counter. Some people are buying comfort, and some people are buying stress. Picture this. You're standing in line, phone in hand, bank app open, because you're trying to be responsible. Your thumb hovers over the pay button for a small purchase you've made 100 times. It's not a big deal until you glance down at your transaction list and your stomach drops. There's a charge you don't recognize, sitting there like it belongs. What do you do next in that moment? Here's the question that decides whether this month feels calm or tight. Where is your money going when you swear you didn't spend it? I'm going to show you how to answer that question without getting complicated. Not with guilt, not with a spreadsheet that lasts 3 days, with a simple set of decisions that moves money from mystery to managed and gets you back to that boring kind of peace where you can breathe again. Because the harsh reality isn't that people are lazy or stupid. It's that a lot of people are fragile. When researchers asked Americans whether they could handle a basic $400 emergency, 1 out of every 3 people said they couldn't. $400. That's less than most people spend on a monthly car payment, and yet for millions of working adults, it would blow up the month. So why can someone making 6 figures still feel broke? Here's the first payoff. When $400 feels like a catastrophe, the problem usually isn't a single surprise charge. The problem is that your money is running on defaults you never chose, and higher income can just fund bigger defaults. That charge you didn't recognize? Sometimes it's fraud and you handle it, but a lot of the time it's just your own past self signing up for something and forgetting. The moment you name it, you're not helpless anymore. You're in control again. I've also met people with modest incomes who sleep just fine. So this isn't a clean income story. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. The same few choices repeat, and your bank balance is just the receipt. Those choices don't show up as one dramatic mistake. They show up as a pattern. No clear direction, no buffer for normal life, no visibility into where the cash goes, and no lock that keeps you from sliding back. Start with direction, because without it, every choice feels like an argument in your own head. Most people handle money the way they'd handle a road trip if they never picked a destination. They drive, they stop when they're hungry, they fill the tank when it's low, and they hope they end up somewhere good. With money, that looks like paycheck hits, bills go out, you buy what feels reasonable, and at the end of the month, you're staring at the same app thinking, how is there nothing left? Direction is what turns "can I afford this?" into a cleaner question. Does this move me closer to my target or farther away? For some people, the target is eliminating credit card balances within 2 years. For others, it's saving for a house down payment. Maybe it's deciding you want to accumulate $15,000 within 18 months. Those are different lives, but the filter is the same. When you're tempted to buy something, the question isn't whether you technically have the money. It's whether that purchase is stealing from the destination. If the purchase pulls you away from your target, then it waits. That's your first decision rule, and it's a relief because it stops the debate. You're not punishing yourself. You're choosing what the money is for. Now we add the buffer, because direction without a buffer turns into stress the moment life does what life always does. Cars break down, appliances fail, medical issues show up, job situations change. Those surprises aren't unexpected. They're predictable in their unpredictability. The difference between people who stay stuck and people who build stability is whether those events turn into panic. If you're in that 1 out of 3 group that can't handle a $400 surprise expense, then your first job is not investing. It's not optimizing. It's building the kind of basic emergency fund that keeps normal life from turning into debt. And yes, start small if you have to. Even $50 set aside specifically for emergencies is better than nothing. This is where the second micro moment happens. You open the app again, not to check the damage, but to set up a small transfer to a separate place. Your thumb hovers over transfer for a beat, because part of you wants to keep that cash in your checking account where you can see it. Then you tap it, and there's a little sting in your hand. But that sting is you buying back options. You're paying for future calm. Once you have direction and a buffer, the third piece is visibility, because you can't fix what you won't look at. A lot of people don't have a spending plan, not because they're irresponsible, but because life is busy and money is emotional. They have a rough idea of what they earn and a vague sense of where it goes, and then the month slips through their fingers. You get paid, you make what feel like reasonable purchases, and then suddenly you're back at that same screen, staring at line items like they're written in a foreign language. Visibility is the moment you stop guessing. It can be as simple as tracking every dollar you spend for 1 month. Not forever, long enough to see what's real. And when you do, you start to notice the quiet drains. The $5 coffee that felt harmless, the impulse buy at the grocery store, the subscription services you forgot about, the lunch out that becomes a habit. When you can see the money clearly, you don't need willpower, you need fewer decisions. Let me give you one proof beat that people hate to look at because it's so concrete. Consider a pack-a-day smoking habit. At current prices, this habit costs roughly $250 per month. Over a year, that's $3,000. Over a decade, it's $30,000, not including the compound growth that money could have generated if invested instead. The point isn't to shame anyone. The point is to show how a normal habit can quietly become a major wealth transfer out of your pocket. Restaurant spending can do the same thing, just wearing nicer clothes. Grabbing lunch out daily, ordering dinner a few times a week. Those choices can easily consume $500 to $800 monthly. Again, not because you're bad, because habits are powerful and habits don't ask permission. And once you see the pattern, you can make a clean choice. Keep it, cut it, or adjust it, based on your direction and protected by your buffer. Now, a responsible person usually raises an objection right here. It sounds like this. This is nice in theory, but I don't earn enough. I'm just trying to survive. I get it. If your rent is high, your groceries jumped, and your paycheck is already spoken for, it can feel insulting to talk about coffee or subscriptions. But here's what I've watched over and over. People can earn 6 figures and still feel broke, because without direction, buffer, and visibility, more income just means more expensive chaos. And people with modest incomes can feel secure, because their system is tight. So here's the decision rule for that objection. If you can't clearly see where your money is going, then the next move is visibility before big promises. Open the app, look at the transaction list, let it tell the truth. That's not a moral moment, it's just information. Because once you can see the leaks, you can stop paying for things that don't actually buy you anything. And then you'll be ready for the final piece, the lock that keeps the progress from disappearing the moment you get busy. The lock is what separates "I know what to do" from "my life actually changed." Most people run their month backward. They pay everyone else first: landlord, utilities, car, groceries, gas, and then they hope something will be left over for their future. Sometimes it is. Usually it isn't. Life expands to fill the space you give it. The lock flips the order. A predetermined amount goes towards savings and investments first, treated like an essential bill. It moves immediately after your paycheck arrives, before you've had time to spend it. That's not motivation, that's design. Start with whatever is manageable, even if it's just $50 or $100 per month. The specific amount matters less than the fact that it happens automatically, without a daily argument in your head. Then, as your expenses come down or your income rises, you raise the contribution. That one switch does something psychological. When you know you've already taken care of your future self, you make cleaner choices with what remains. You get creative, you become selective. You stop building a lifestyle that requires a constant financial performance. And that leads to a second objection that a lot of responsible people carry quietly. It sounds like this: life is short. I don't want money rules that turn my life gray. I agree with the spirit of that. Present enjoyment matters. The problem is when live for today turns into pretending your future self doesn't exist. So here's the decision rule. If a purchase is mainly about what other people might think, it doesn't get to compete with your direction and your lock. This is where a lot of spending gets weird. An expensive watch isn't always about timekeeping. A luxury car lease isn't always about transportation. Sometimes the real product is the impression, and impressions are expensive because they never stay satisfied. The irony is that people who actually build wealth often do the opposite. They don't need the props. They're comfortable instead of impressive. They understand that every dollar spent on appearances is a dollar that isn't working for them. That's why the order matters so much. When the transfer happens first, your month has a spine. When it doesn't, your month is a negotiation you usually lose.
Now I want to give you a single exercise you can do near the end of a normal day without making your life about budgeting. Pull up your bank or card transaction list and do what I call a statement sweep. First, look. Scroll through 1 month of transactions, slowly enough to actually read the line items. Pay special attention to repeats, the same merchant names, The same small charges, the same patterns that show up when you're tired or stressed. Then decide. For every repeat, make one clean call. Keep it because it genuinely supports your life. Cut it because it's a leak, or rename it so it tells the truth. Dining out becomes, I'm paying for convenience. That $5 coffee becomes my afternoon reset. When you rename it honestly, it becomes easier to choose it on purpose, or let it go on purpose. Finally, lock. Pick one action that stops relapse. Cancel the subscription you forgot about. Set the automatic transfer to happen right after payday. If debt is part of your story, make one extra payment toward the highest interest balance and stop adding new consumer debt. The goal is not a perfect month. The goal is that your system gets stronger without you having to think about it. If you do this, something changes. The app stops being a place you check when you're scared and becomes a tool you use when you're calm. The goal isn't excitement. It's that boring, steady feeling of being back in control when you go to bed. And you'll notice something else. The next time your thumb hovers over a purchase, you won't feel that same fog. You'll have direction. You'll have a buffer. You'll be able to see what's real, and your lock will already be working in the background. For more calm, practical money systems like this, subscribe to Nhan Academy. I'll see you in the next one.